Hey guys, what's going on? This is BJ from Real World Guitar, and today we are going to be deconstructing the epic solo from the outro of Sultans of Swing. Let's do it. So one thing to keep in mind as we dig into this solo is Mark Knopfler tends to play without a pick. He often plays with just his thumb and his first finger, or thumb and first two fingers, not just on an acoustic guitar, but especially on an electric guitar too, which is somewhat of an unusual approach. So I've tried to emulate that in this video, but for your own sake, when you're practicing this song, if that's not a technique you're used to, feel free to play with a pick, or maybe even do some hybrid picking where you hold the pick with your thumb and first finger and use your middle finger in addition. That might help you as you're trying to get some of these licks down. Keep in mind as you're working on this too, that it is important to know the chords that are happening behind the solo over the outro of this song. So over the entire outro, we've got D minor, B flat, and C. This very much outlines the key of D minor. So there's gonna be a lot of our standard blues licks in D minor. We'll play a lot of 10th fret minor pentatonic, but Mark Knopfler is a really unique and interesting guitar player. So he kind of moves throughout the key of D minor all over the neck of the guitar. He also likes to outline arpeggios at different spots, especially plays a lot over the C chord. When we go to a C, a lot of his licks kind of outline a C major triad or a C major and 6 triad there with some extra notes thrown in. We'll dig into the details as we get into the video, but just keep in mind that knowing the D minor, B flat, and C will be extremely helpful as to making some sense of the notes he's playing over the top. All right, let's go check it out. All right, so our first section consists primarily of a D minor blues lick and then this kind of descending series of hammer-ons and pull-offs. So we're starting up in our standard D minor pentatonic position, bending the 12th fret on the G, a little vibrato, back down to the 12th, unbent, and then 10, 12, 10, down to 12 on the D. And then he catches 10 on the G 2 more times, kind of quietly. And then one more bend. So bend up a whole step, back down, and then catch the 12th fret one more time. And then we go into this series of descending hammer-ons and pull-offs. So 9, 12, 9, 7, 9, 7, 5, 7, 5. That's all in the G. Now it moves to the D string and does a hammer-on from 5 to 7, up to the 5th fret on the G, and then it moves to the A string, does a hammer-on from 5 to 7, pull off back to 5, and then down to the 3rd fret. So our second lick is still pentatonic, but it really shows Mark Knopfler's penchant for dynamics and making certain notes pop out more than others. So the lick that really stands out that you hear is a pull off from 10 to 8 on the B string, 10 on the G, back up to 8 on the B, and then 10 to 7 on the G. But again, because he's playing with his thumb and his fingers, he's able to get this kind of double percussive note going into it. And I do that by muting the strings with my left hand and just playing the G to the B. And then that lick. And then he kind of tags this little quiet series of notes right on the end. And in the mix, it's almost so low that you can't hear it. But if you isolate that guitar, it is in there. So you get... And then 8 on the B, 10 to 7 on the G, and then back to 8 on the B. So that's that whole second lick. From there, he jumps right into this kind of cool hammer-on, pull-off arpeggio lick. Now, this makes a lot of sense because in the background, they're playing a C chord, so this is over a C major chord, and this here, basically it's a C major triad with the 6th thrown in, or in this case, it's the A note. So to start off the lick, he gets the 9th fret on the G, and then hammers on 8 to 10 and pulls off back to 8 on the B. And then the repetitive portion of the lick starts right after that. 8 on the high E string, pull off from 10 to 8 on the B, and then 9 on the G. I like to bar the first 2 strings with my first finger, so I'm holding down 8 on the high E and the B string. That way I can keep both of those down while I do the pull off. So 8 on the E, pull off 10 to 8 on the B, and then 9 on the G. And what I'm doing is, as far as my right hand is concerned, you can play this however you want. You can use a pick, you can use your fingers. He uses his thumb and fingers. I play the high E string with my middle finger, and then I play the 10th fret on the B with my thumb. I do a pull off, and then I also play the G with my thumb. So it's middle finger, thumb, thumb. And then, because he's Mark Knopfler and he does all these cool little funky things in between, he just quite literally does 2 percussive strikes or rakes across the strings at the end of that lick. So all together, you've got... Again, it's kind of quiet. You don't hear it. Doesn't pop out super loud in the mix, but it is there. And again, it's neat, and it adds an interesting rhythmic factor to that line. From here, he goes into this kind of burning pentatonic lick. Again, we're back to our sort of home base for D minor up at the 10th fret, standard 10th fret minor pentatonic scale. But the first lick is our kind of a standard blues lick. You bend the 12th fret on the G. You're going to bar the last 2 strings at the 10th fret, so we're playing 10 on the B to 10 on the high E. And then we're going to pull off 13 to 10 on the B. And we're going to land on 12 on the G. Then another pull off starting on that same note, 12 to 10 on the G, moving down to 12 on the D. So now we've got... Now at the tail end of this, we're going to hammer on 10 to 12 on the D string. Then you bar the 10th fret, and you're going to grab 10 on the G and 10 on the B. And then he's back to end that lick on the 12th fret of the G. And then again, quietly, one of those little dynamic things you almost don't even hear in the full mix. He plays 10, 12, 10 on the G right at the tail end of that lick. Now, again, in the background, we're moving back to the C for our next lick. And again, it makes sense because he sort of outlines a C triad, and he jumps up to different notes on the top. So he goes up to the 6th, and then the flat 7, and then kind of does this C dominant bending lick. But let's check out what's going on here. So for the first one, you're just kind of playing a C triad, which is this diagonal shape, 10 on the D, 9 on the G, and 8 on the B. And I do it as a rake. So if I'm playing in Mark Knopfler style, I do thumb, first finger, middle finger on the D, the G, and the B. and then grab the 10th fret on the B string. Same thing again, but you go up to 11 the second time. And then right at the end of this, you're gonna bend the 11th fret on the B, up a whole step. While it's bent, we're gonna catch 12 on the high E, come back to the B, pluck it one more time, release that 11th fret bend, and then we get 10 on the high E. So, all together. And then he jumps into the crazy pull-off lick that everybody kind of associates with this song. So to get into this last lick, the one that kind of everybody knows, it's super fun to play, but you want to be aware of the chords that are going on in the background at this point. So again, we've got D minor, B flat, and then C. And that's really important because each of these little pull-off patterns or three-note triad patterns that he plays outline a different chord. So the first one he plays over the D minor. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna bar the 10th fret on the B and the high E string, and you're playing the B to the high E, and that's sort of our lead in. And then the repetitive portion of this lick, we're gonna pull off 13 on the high E, back to 10, play 10 on the B, and then back to 10 on the high E. Now our second lick, the only thing we need to change is we switch to the 11th fret on the B string. So we're still pulling off 13 to 10 on the high E, but we're getting 11 on the B now. This is outlining a B flat triad. And then that, because you move the B flat up to a C, we're just gonna move this up 2 frets for the third portion of this. And now we've got to pull off from 15 to 12 on the high E and 13 on the B. So all together. And then he repeats that same thing. On the last one, he actually descends through that triad. So he ends with the pull off 15 to 12, 13 on the B. And then our final lick, or the final portion of this solo, starts with a big bend on the high E string. We're bending the 15th fret up a whole step with some vibrato on there. So after that first big bend, we're gonna do a bend and release on the 15th fret, also a whole step. And then 13, 15, 13 on the high E, down to the 15th fret on the B. So. And then a little transition before he does the descending portion of the lick. He hits 13 on the high E twice, and then 13 on the B once. So. And then here, similar to what he did an octave lower at the beginning of the solo, we're gonna bend the 15th fret up a whole step, release it, pick it one more time, and then we have this series of hammer-ons and pull-offs working our way down the neck. So from here, 12, 15, 12, 8, 10, 8, 5, 8, 5. That's still all on the high E string. And then 5, 8, 5 on the B. And then his last note, he catches the 5th fret on the G and kind of slides out of it. So. And that gets you out of that whole thing. So again, this is coming out of the real speedy lick. And that wraps up that whole solo. Good luck.